Welcome back to another episode of the Weekend Wrap. A little later than usual, but I had a lot to get through this weekend. It was quite eventful, to be totally honest. Some things outside of the sports world. Plus, I was watching the UFC, watching Amanda Nunes claim back her title from Juliana Pena, or Pena, as I should say. So that was a really good scrap. Card on the whole was pretty decent. Had some fairly entertaining boxing on. Now, realistically, there's only particularly one fight that I saw with any real interest, which was obviously Chris Billam-Smith versus Isaac Chamberlain. It was a great fight. Well, maybe not great in terms of technique and ring IQ and whatnot, but entertaining. It was a very entertaining fight. It was a fight like, if you was there watching it, I'm sure you would have been highly entertained. It pretty much played out exactly as I thought it would. Isaac Chamberlain wouldn't get to, control the pace, dictate, use his angles and his movement. Chris Billam-Smith pretty much used his jab just as a way to get himself to the inside so that he could use his forearms. He could grab him, he could hold him, push him towards the ropes, lean on him. Now, to be fair, Isaac was actually quite strong in a few of those clinches. A lot stronger than I was expecting him to be. But you could see him being a naturally smaller guy, it just sort of took more out of him. So I think sometimes he was just allowing himself to get pushed back just so that he didn't have to expend as much energy. But yeah, you could see that that was clearly Chris Billam-Smith's tactic to sort of just drain him down. Same as he kind of did to McCarthy in his previous fight. But Isaac, very valiant performance, put up a great effort. I think I gave him like 4 rounds in the fight. Can't remember which ones exactly off the top of my head now, but it was definitely to me like a 116, 112, or even possibly like a 116, 113 if there was maybe like a split round in there somewhere. But the right guy won. Just sort of a bit too, like I said, a bit too busy at the start. Isaac came back towards the middle. Like Chris was clearly quite visibly gassed towards the end, but ultimately Isaac didn't really have enough to kind of step on and sort of finish it. Although in that last round, as what seems to happen these days, he found one clear, I'm not going to say it's a lucky shot, but he found one clear shot that caught Chris, sort of had him wobbling a little bit, and maybe if the round was another 10, 15, 20 seconds, it might have been a knockdown, could have ended in a flurry, possible stoppage, you never know. So Isaac acquitted himself well, but ultimately it's another defeat on the record to a domestic opponent, domestic rival, and he's now got to go back to the drawing board, start from scratch again. Hopefully he can stay a lot more active this time and fight much better opposition on his way to his next big test. But I did see something on the I think it was on Twitter, I think it was on Twitter a little earlier on. So apparently he broke his orbital bone on his left eye in the 3rd round, but carried on all the way through the fight. So if that's the case, that's probably gonna have him out of action now for maybe 4 or 5, maybe 6 months. Should be a bit of a shame. That kind of derailed any momentum he was gaining. But I'd like to see him back in the ring around about sort of February, March time if he's medically cleared. And then, just be active all next year. As for Chris Billam-Smith, it's a bit hard to tell where he goes from here because personally, if I'm being totally honest, he's not world level. Like, he's not gonna, the European, obviously got the Commonwealth and the European title now. I really feel like that's his level. I don't see him troubling any of the champions, even Guillamarian, who's been inactive for the last 3.5 years. But you know what, if he's able to get a chance at any of those belts, like, good on him, because one thing is he's a grafter, and he's done himself proud, and it will be interesting to see how his journey concludes in the long run. But yeah, outside of that, talk about Ben Whittaker real quick. There's not a huge amount to talk about. His debut lasted 2 rounds. Brilliant overhand right which basically caught his opponent on the temple, scrambled him. He was unable to continue, couldn't get up. Referee called it a TKO. In the first round, there was a lot of showboating, a lot of posturing. Some people are saying he's going to need to cut that out. Quite frankly, I don't think so. Personally, he looks very, very switched on, and he's a very intelligent guy. So you can tell that the showboating, he's only going to do it when he knows he can't. Like, he's not going to literally be in there against, you know, like a British champion or even the English champion and be doing that, or going for an EBU title or like a final eliminator. He might do little flashes here and there, but ultimately he's just having some fun with, you know, opponents that aren't in his league. I mean, that's quite frankly what we watch for. Like, if someone's not in your league, you do things to show them that they're not in your league. I had no issues with his performance. It was entertaining. He's definitely gonna be a big player moving forward. He might end up going down to 168, but I know he's talking about all the light heavies. He said he wants them. I mean, I know him and Dan Aziz are already starting their little rivalry, so that should be a very interesting shout in sort of, you know, maybe a year's time, a year and a half, depending on how many fights Ben gets in between now and then, and depending on what Dan chooses to do. But that's that's shaping up nicely. So congrats. If we move over to the Showtime card real quick. Now, I didn't even realize this was on, hence why it wasn't in my, you know, basis picks or anything. Main event was, I mean, it was good if you're a fan of Danny Garcia, I suppose. He pretty much pitched a shutout. There was only 2 rounds that I gave to David Benavidez, and only one of those I could really justify. So seeing the cards where someone actually had it a draw and one other judge gave him 4 rounds and one gave him 3, I'm like, they must have been scraping the bottom of the barrel to find things to give, just to make it look like it was this highly entertaining main event on the card, because it was not that at all. One thing it did highlight is that Danny Garcia doesn't need to be at 154, because both him and Benavidez are 147 guys realistically moving up, and he barely troubled Benavidez with every shot he threw. Whereas anytime Benavidez did kind of hit him, you could tell it showed more of an effect. So Tony Harrison was in the crowd saying, look, he wants that work. If he's putting his feet in the pool, like, let's see if you can actually swim in the deep end. And quite frankly, I think Tony Harrison will beat beat all sorts of excrements out of him, if I'm honest. So he best find himself back to 147, or maybe just call it a day. I know he's gone up there, his plans to try and pick up a vacant title when Charlo eventually lets him go. But yeah, like, he's legit cannon fodder up there. That being said, he looked good against someone that wasn't very mobile. He did okay. But yeah, that's just not the division for him. Fight of the night on that card, though, I guess has to go to Adam Kovnatski and Ali Aaron Demirezhan. Yeah, I mean, it was just, there was a lot of, I guess, I wouldn't call it high level skill, but there was a lot of punch variety in that fight. No one really was throwing stuff that was wobbling and was going to knock the other guy out as such, because I don't think either of them actually hit that hard. But that being said, there was a lot of punches thrown. It was highly entertaining from the first round to the 10th. And yeah, it was definitely a fight that you can kind of just watch, little popcorn, little drink, and, you know, you'd be highly entertained. If you want to just show someone two people slugging in the middle of the ring, it's that kind of performance. Adam Kovnatski suffers his 3rd loss on the bounce. So now he's officially in that journeyman / gatekeeper type status, because there's no coming back, there's no way back to the world level for him. He doesn't have the appeal of a Derek Chisora. He doesn't even really have that same kind of hometown crowd, and doesn't have the names on the resume that someone like Derek Chisora has. So yeah, and knowing him, I don't think he's going to want to stick around and be a 11 losses, 12 losses type guy. So I think he might have one more. Win, lose or draw, I think he's going to call it quits. His is a sad tale of a career that's been hugely mismanaged, you know, from turning down that, what was it, that 7-figure payday for the AJ fight. What was it, like $6 million or something? And then all of a sudden they say, oh, well, he's already got a match booked. There was nothing announced at the time. Then 2 months later, you find out he's fighting Chris Arreola. Probably, I think his purse for that card was like 120,000. So you dropped, what did they say? You dropped pounds to pick up pennies, something along those lines. And there was that. Plus, as he got another 7-figure offer to fight Derek Chisora, and now you get beat by Ali Aaron Demirejan for what, another 100k. Like, someone in his management needs to be fired, because the guy is like, he's just a walking mishap at this point, and it looks like his spirit's broken. So unfortunately, I think that's probably the end of him at any decent level. But no, if he gets one more in, that's cool. Rances Bartholomew against Gary Antoine Russell. That was another good little fight. Ended very controversially. If anyone's seen it, obviously Antoine Russell scored a very heavy knockdown on Bartholomew, but he got up. He wasn't wobbling, he wasn't shaking. He got up calm, walked to the ref, and the ref asked him to, waved his gloves and said, "You're going to continue?" He shook his head, and the ref just looked at him and then waved it off. Like, everyone was up in arms. He was upset, his whole corner was upset. It was a weird stoppage, almost like the ref was paid to stop it at the first sign of adversity, or he was just paid to keep a knockout streak going. Because, not to say that he wouldn't have got knocked out later on in the fight, but he was perfectly fine at that moment. There was no distress in his body language, and he didn't, you know, we've seen it from a couple angles. His eyes weren't glazed to a point that you say, oh yeah, he's about to get himself hurt. He was fine, clear-headed, moving, coherent, following instructions. The ref just called it off. So I don't know if it's going to end up being investigated, but if it was me, that's something I would definitely want investigated. I'd write an official complaint to the Athletics Commission in New York, but that's just me. And that was pretty much card in a nutshell. I mean, Caroline Dubois, she had another, you know, pretty good performance. She was loading up on her shots a bit too much, though. She maybe going to need to employ a bit more of the pity pat, you know, sort of that soft, hard rhythm, or the soft, hard, or hard, soft, hard, kind of, just so the opponent doesn't know what shots come in. Just so when, you know, it's that way, when you vary up, it just makes the impact greater when the person's expecting something that they feel like, oh, I can take this, then bam, you can't take it. But yeah, she's 3-0, 2 knockouts, doing very well. She's going to be on the card on the 10th of September. If I get there early enough, I might see her fight live. Depends on what time she's on. But I don't really think I'm going prior to the co-main and the main event. And real quick, I guess because it broke today, or was it yesterday, and I might talk about it in a video later on, but Jake Paul and Hasim Rahman Jr. is officially off now, because Jake Paul's citing that Hasim Rahman basically has blown the weights that he was contracted to make, you know, when they're doing their sort of incremental weigh-in checks weekly, and apparently he's way off weight. So yeah, Jake Paul's called it off. The rumor is, though, that it's been called off due to very, very poor ticket sales. I don't know which one is correct, but what I do know is the fight's off, and now Jake still can't say that he's got a professional boxer on his record. But rather than trying to drain a guy that's, you know, coming from, you know, heavyweight or whatever, and then potentially having issues, if that's what you want to call it, why not just get someone, if you really want to, just get someone who normally fights at like lightweight, if that's what you want to do, a super feather, and then let them come in the ring at what, 150, 154, be 190, Or someone that fights at super middle, 154, they can come in the ring around what, 170, 175. You'll be in the ring around what, 200. I mean, they're still a boxer at the end of the day, if that's really what you're saying, rather than going the other way, because you definitely can't control if someone can, you know, drop the weight, but you can control if someone can put weight on or can fight at a lower weight, just like some of the other people you fought previously. But anyway, that's the end of that. It's a shame, because I was actually looking forward to watching that next weekend. I'm gonna have to find something else to do now instead, but I'm sure I've got a couple options. But yeah, let me leave that there. That's the weekend in a nutshell, and I will be back during the week with a couple more stories, and we'll see what we get to. But yeah, for now, thanks for listening, and peace out.